Hello, my name is Hilary Benn. I'm the chair of the Brexit Select Committee, and as they say, I'm really sorry that I can't be with you at your conference today, but with impeccable timing, it coincides with the second day of consideration of Lord's amendments to the EU withdrawal bill, and we've all got to be in the House to vote on them. But I want to thank you for the clarity and sense of purpose with which the Food and Drink Federation has talked about Brexit and what you need for the future of your industry, which is so important to the British economy. Where are we? Well, we're in a bit of a difficulty because here we are, nearly 2 years on from the referendum. The Cabinet is still debating what kind of customs arrangements and therefore what kind of trade arrangements it wants to have with our biggest, nearest and most important trading partners, the 27 other member states of the European Union, and time is running out. Now, we're in a process that has two parts. The first part is the withdrawal agreement, if you like, the divorce settlement. An agreement has been reached on the money and on EU citizens, a transition arrangement which is really important because we must ensure that we don't fall off the edge of a cliff, but we also need to find a solution to the challenge of keeping an open border between Northern Ireland and the Republic, really important for those in the agri-food business who trade across that border every single day. And I know you've heard from the Irish Agriculture Minister. Now, the Select Committee said, we share the government's objective, no checks, no infrastructure, but it's really hard to see you can do that if at the same time you're leaving the single market and the customs union. And that's why the government has had to offer a backstop, a fallback, to ensure that that border remains open. Last week it published its proposals. I called it half a backstop because it covers customs and goods, but it doesn't deal with regulations and the operation of the internal market. And Michel Barnier has said in the last couple of days, well, that needs to be in there if we're going to be able to make progress at the June Council at the end of this month. But the second part of this process will be the negotiation on the future relationship. And that is everything to do with trade and services. 80% of the British economy is services, the exchange of data, cooperation on foreign policy, defence, security, the fight against terrorism, working together on consumer safety, on chemicals and medicines, and regulation of the industries which you represent. And that deal cannot even be signed until we have left the European Union. Now, the truth is we will be leaving the institutions of the European Union at the end of March next year. That's what the referendum decided, but it did not decide the basis of our future economic relationship with our friends and neighbours. And that is the negotiation that will need to start. It's barely begun, and it consists of, as you know, a lot of very complex issues, including the crucial question which you've raised with me in our discussions, people. How are we going to ensure that the industry continues to have access to the people with the right skills, whether it's picking and processing vegetables or undertaking scientific research, because that's absolutely fundamental to the future of the British economy. Now, the Select Committee has said, we've set out a series of tests against which we will want to judge the final agreement. There will be votes in the House of Commons this week and subsequently on whether we should remain, for example, in a customs union. Speaking personally, I very strongly support that. I think we should. It's the view of the CBI. It's also the view of the Labour front bench, and Parliament will have a chance to pass judgment on that. And we also need to discuss how we're going to deal with the question of access to the single market. The next important stages will be the Council at the end of June, votes on a customs union, and maybe whether we should look at an arrangement that is like the European Economic Area, although by definition, if we went down that road, perhaps as a temporary holding place, so we can offer some certainty, it would have to look very different from the Norway arrangement because Norway is not in a customs union, and we, of course, want to be in a customs union with the European Union when this process is completed. And then we will get to the autumn when a withdrawal agreement, we hope, will come back and the House of Commons will have to take a decision upon it. The transition period is really important. The government has already accepted, in effect, that we will be staying in a customs union with the European Union for some time to come, because that is the commitment it's made in the backstop it has offered in respect of Northern Ireland and the Republic. So one way or another, I think that's what's likely to happen. The Select Committee that I chair has also expressed some concern that it may well not be possible to complete the negotiations on the future partnership between now and the end of the transition in December 2020. So one of the things we have called for is that the transition agreement must include provision for it to be extended. Because when you're dealing with things as complex and difficult and challenging as Brexit is, providing some flexibility is really sensible, and pushing yourself up against a hard deadline is not a good way to proceed. And then in the autumn, it will be for Parliament to decide whether we accept the withdrawal agreement, and it will consist of the things I talked about earlier, and then crucially, a political declaration on our future economic, trade, security, and other relationships. That will not be a treaty, it will not be a draft treaty, and Parliament will have to make a judgment as to whether there is sufficient certainty about where we're going to end up in that political declaration to vote for the withdrawal agreement, or Parliament might say, I'm afraid there's insufficient clarity because a huge amount rests on getting this right. Our most important trading partner, big export markets, services industry, 80% of the British economy. Parliament might say, well, I'm afraid we can't quite give approval to this, and we want the government to go back and ask for some things that are different. The final thing I want to say is this. I think for too long we have been hearing views expressed that it's all going to be fine and easy and we'll get all of the things that we want. But this is now the moment of truth, because hard reality is intruding, and there are choices to be made, and there are trade-offs that we have to decide upon in order to get the best deal for Britain and for the food and drink industries that you represent so well. And I look forward to continuing to work with you and others in industry as we try and make sure that we get the best possible deal for the British people. And we need, if we have views to express, and I would encourage you to go on doing what you have been doing, if you don't speak out now, later on it might be too late. So, say what you think, argue your case for what kind of deal that we should get, and it will be Parliament's job in the end to listen and to make a judgment. Can I wish you a very successful rest of your conference today, and thank you once again for the leadership that you've been showing on Brexit. It really is appreciated. Thank you.